Hi guys, today I want to cover a subject that really gets my goat. Anti-vaxxers. To my mind, these guys are some of the scummiest of the scum of conspiratards. What they advocate for in the stopping of people using vaccinations hurts everybody. They don't just lower the intelligence of society with their stupidity, they actually hurt it. So get your counters going, people, because these guys are the real assholes. Welcome to Jen's Little Corner.
So I'd love to talk for a minute about this thing called herd immunity, or the new colorful way of talking about it is community immunity.
Yes, herd immunity or community immunity. The fact that the more of us who are actually immunized, the more we can protect those that aren't. As more and more people stop being immunized, there are less of us who are able to protect the more vulnerable in society who cannot be immunized. By not immunizing your kids, not only are you putting them at risk, you're putting other children at risk. Children at risk. Remember that, you're putting children at risk.
So I'd love to share, there's a Navy ship out at sea right now, somewhere in the Middle East, and it's called the USS Fort McHenry.
Yes, the USS Fort McHenry. Let's see how much you butcher this narrative to try and drive home your idiotic and dangerous position.
So this is a military ship. It's got Navy personnel on it. It also has Marines on it.
Yep, I would have thought the USS Fort McHenry would have given that little bit away.
And every single person on that ship was fully vaccinated.
Again, full vaccination is a policy in the US Navy, or any US military branch. Because military forces are shipped around the world and are subject to all manners of possible infections and diseases, they get immunized to protect them. In fact, if it wasn't for all the immunizations we have, we'd have a lot more dead military personnel out there.
But here's an interesting thing that happened. Okay, they have 100% vaccination rate, and they're experiencing an outbreak. And the outbreak is so slow, it's slowly making its way, affecting people on the ship. And it's happening so slowly that they can't take the ship to shore because they're concerned about spreading whatever it is, some version of mumps.
Yep, some version of mumps. There's a disease that kids don't get very often these days. But these guys on the ship, somebody brought it back on board the ship and it got passed around the ship, as communicable diseases do. And yes, it happened slowly because it relied on people coming in contact with other people who'd been in contact with somebody on the ship who'd had it. And it is normal practice within navies around the world that if a disease gets on a ship, you don't pull into port and transmit that disease to another country. But you're misrepresenting this more than this, and I'm going to bring up an article on this to show that you are. The US warship hit hard by the mumps is finally virus-free after being quarantined at sea for months. This is an article on the McHenry in Business Insider. So let's take a bit of a look, shall we? Here's the main key points. The USS Fort Henry appears to be finally virus-free after an outbreak of mumps left the ship quarantined at sea for around 4 months. A total of 28 people, roughly 4% of the 703 service members on board, were affected, but all the infected personnel have recovered and have returned to duty. It's been 112 days since the ship made a port call, an unusually long stretch to go without a break for the crew and resupply for the ship. Typically deployed US warships make a port call every month. So yes, the ship had to be out at sea for a prolonged period of time whilst they tried to manage this outbreak. And remember, There's 703 servicemen and women on board this ship, and only 28 people, 4% of the population of the ship, were affected by this outbreak. It is not uncommon for us to see outbreaks of vaccine-preventable viral infections, the Navy's Bureau of Medicine and Surgery previously told Business Insider, adding that while vaccines are effective at reducing the incidence and severity of vaccine-preventable diseases, the mumps portion of the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine, the MMR vaccine, is only 88% effective, suggesting that a vaccinated person could still be infected. Now remember, it's only 88% effective, which means 12% of the crew on board that ship would not have had an effective mumps vaccine from the MMR vaccine. But only 4% of the ship actually got sick. And the reason for that was the other 8% were actually protected by the herd immunity of the rest of the ship. This ship is a perfect example of why herd immunity works. And just for 5 seconds, imagine how much worse this would have been if there were not mandatory vaccination for the crews on board these ships. Nearly everyone on board that ship who wasn't willing to be vaccinated themselves would have ended up sick. It wouldn't have been a slow progression through the ship. It would have been a fast progression, and it would have taken the ship down. As it was, the ship could manage without 28 people. Less than 1% of its crew per month taken out of commission with mumps, the crew could manage if there had not been mandatory vaccinations. This ship would not only have been quarantined, it would have been dead in the water. So when I say that anti-vaxxers are disingenuous and arseholes, I really, really mean it. They need to stop peddling this rubbish and stop hurting people and start actually reading some real science and not crawl into their little corners of the web where they can pat each other on the shoulders for being the douchebags that they fucking well are.
They don't want to spread the disease to people at shore. So this whole idea that if we get closer to 100% herd immunity, that somehow everyone's going to be protected from pathogens is just ridiculous. And
You disingenuous piece of crap. Not everyone is protected from herd immunity, but the vast majority of people are. There will always be people who get sick, but the more people we have immunized, the more people we can protect. And if you can be immunized, you are even in a better state of being protected. So let me guess, you wouldn't like to have the inconvenience of having an inflatable airbag in your car, so you think that should be removed. And whilst they're about that, they can remove the passenger one too, because you're opposed to that. And then everyone who has an accident in your car can die because you're a disingenuous asshole. Well, this analogy isn't exactly the same. It sort of highlights the point that your own selfishness is endangering other people. Just stop. Stop being an asshole and stop doing this.
I've always felt this way, but I never really had, perfectly super hard evidence to support that belief. But now that we've got this Navy ship out at sea, it just goes to show there is no magic number.
Oh, so you've always felt and you've always believed, and I've always known better than what the experts have told me. Oh, for fuck's sake. People like you hurt other people with your stupidity. Your feels and wants do not trump the science. And the science, and even this case of this Navy ship, show that herd immunity works. It protects people. It mostly protects children. You are advocating for not protecting children. You are an asshole.
I remember there was a time when they used to say, well, if we had 85% of the population vaccinated, then that would stop the spread of disease. And
it is. Look at the case of the McHenry. 100% of the crew are vaccinated. but only 88% of them would have had an effective vaccination for the mumps. So 88% of the crew were vaccinated successfully against the mumps. That 88% protected 8% of the crew from getting the mumps when it went through the ship. You will never get 100% protection for everybody. Somebody will get exposed at some point to something that they, for whatever reason, may not be vaccinated against. But the fact that vaccinations don't work sometimes for some people means that those people need protection from the rest of the herd, from the rest of us. They need our vaccinations that did work to help protect them from getting these diseases. It won't protect all of them, but it will protect the vast majority. But if you take away vaccinations from the herd, from us, we will protect nobody. And these diseases, like mumps, and worse, TB, polio, measles, will get out there in the community and cause massive amounts of outbreaks like they did in the past. Do not be an asshole. You should be advocating for more vaccinations to protect those who are vulnerable, to protect children.
It crept up to 90%. Then it was 92. Then it was 95. So here we have a 100% vaccination rate, and it still happens. Why does that happen?
Because for some people, vaccinations don't work, and for others, they can't have it for medical reasons. Like in the case of mumps, only 88% of vaccinations are effective. So 12% of the population, despite having had the vaccine, will still be susceptible to mumps. They then get protected by the rest of the herd. I already fucking explained this.
It happens because of vaccine failure.
So you do know about vaccine failure rates. Oh, for fuck's sake, why are you going on like this is a big slam dunk for you as to why vaccines shouldn't be given? For fuck's sake. Don't be disingenuous and stop being an asshole.
So that's what we really need to talk about, is the fact that the vaccines are actually not working.
They do work, you dumbass. Nothing is 100% effective, ever. Obviously your parents' contraception wasn't.
They used to tell us that they will only work if everyone around is vaccinated.
Wrong again. We've always been told with vaccinations that the more people who are vaccinated, the more people are protected, because of the fact that some people's vaccinations don't work and that some people medically have reasons why they can't take vaccinations. You really are not listening, you dumb fuck.
But if you stop and think about the fallacy of that logic, you'll realize that who would want a product that doesn't actually work? We want...
Again, you disingenuous asshole. Let's look at the McHenry again. Mumps got on board the ship. The entire ship was vaccinated. 88% of the ship had a successful mumps vaccination. And only 4% of the ship got sick, which is actually less than what should have if everybody whose vaccination hadn't worked had caught the mumps. So the herd immunity was working, as is intended.
If we want to buy a product, we want a product that's going to stand up to the threat when the threat is presented. But this is a product that says no threat is allowed to exist because the product might fail.
Okay. And now I think I'm beginning to understand you. What you want is vaccinations that everybody else has to work 100%, so that we don't have to feel like we're threatened by you not taking your vaccinations. You selfish prick.
And so this whole idea of herd immunity is absolutely a myth, and it is not up to the unvaccinated population to go inoculate themselves with a product that doesn't work.
The original video is only 4 minutes long. 4 minutes. And I don't think I've seen somebody repeat so many lies so many times over and over again. You are a disingenuous asshole. You should go back to school and get yourself some proper learnings and shut the fuck up. Anyway, guys, I don't think I can take any more of her. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already. And remember, try not to choke on the selfie stick.